Thank you for joining us for this week's live Q&A. World Bee Day is today in the Northern Hemisphere, yesterday here in the Southern Hemisphere, and the theme is Be Inspired by Nature, which is easy to do when you are keeping bees. So it's a beautiful theme in a way, because bees are often this connector where what's happening in your surrounding environment and those bees flying out, collecting that nectar and bringing that all back into your hive is painting a picture of the environment in your surrounding area, and particularly those flowering species. Chime in, let us know what inspires you about bees. So for those that are just tuning in, the theme is World Bee Day, and the theme they've chosen is Be Inspired by Nature. So let us know what inspires you about bees, and in particular about bees and the nature connection. So we're here looking at the bees this morning and having a look at what we can do. Now this is a beautiful hive here, showing you an anatomy diagram here of Apis mellifera, the European honeybee, which we owe a lot to as humans. We have really integrated this species with our whole food chain. So super important to have enough bees and enough beekeepers to keep our whole agricultural system going. And on the other side of this hive you have the, let's see, this beautiful show of garden is really going well with all of this rain. You can see here we have the worker bee, the queen bee and the drone bee, and then above that there's this beautiful artwork showing the egg going through its larvae stages. We're going to harvest just a tiny bit of honey because we need to look after the bees and not harvest too much here at the moment. The situation is we've had a lot of rain for a number of weeks and everything's sloshy and the bees haven't been able to forage. However, this hive is managing to bring in some nectar, but as you can see by this pattern, it's not full. But one fun thing you can do with the flow hive is, even if there's not honey to harvest in a big way, you can just harvest a little bit and the bees will quickly refill that end of the frame. So we can just get this key and insert it just a little way in. If this was the whole frame, then if you insert it that far, you'd be harvesting half the frame and a quarter and so on. So it's a fun little thing you can do. And we'll do that now. We'll insert this and turn it, and the reason why we're just harvesting a little bit is the bees haven't really quite finished making that into honey. So this honey will be a little bit liquid, but it's a still fun thing to do if you just want to show somebody it, or if you simply want to taste what's coming in right now, which helps you connect what's flowering as to what the bees are bringing in and what honey it is from what nectar source. So it's a beautiful thing to be able just to tap off a tiny bit and taste that and get an idea. And straight away I know that is the paperbark. The rains here set it off. The indigenous folks call it the rain tree, because whenever it rains, if it's even late summer all the way through till spring, anywhere in that time frame, the paperbark just bursts into bloom. So we're expecting it to really kick off in a big way down here, turn the forest a snow colour with all of its blossoms. And the paperbark honey has a very strong scent that wafts right through our office here, and it's just really amazing when it's on. So here we have it, the paperbark honey, not quite ready here, but we're just harvesting a little bit today to get an idea of what it is. A nice little trick you can do too with your flow hive. Of course, if you harvest a whole frame of not quite ready honey, you will need to consume it before it ferments keeping it in the fridge is one thing you can do to extend it when it's not quite ripe honey yet. If you've got any questions, put it in the comments below and we'll read those out and we'll answer them as best as we can. Now, if you've got answers to other people's questions, we love to see you chiming in. It's amazing to see a global audience helping each other in all different climates around the world. Now, harvesting into tiny little jars is fun, especially if you've got a wedding or something like that. We've taken hives to weddings before, harvested a little jar like this for every single guest, and that's a special thing that people really remember. World Bee Day is the theme, and World Bee Day has the theme this year of Be Inspired by Nature. So chime in, let us know what inspires you about bees and the connection to nature. Any questions coming in?
Yeah, the first question we have is, where can you buy these hives?
So we have had them on the market since 2015 from our record-breaking crowdfunding, where we got 25,000 orders of hives in the first 8 weeks, and that's how we started, with a rocket ship start. And straight away we set up warehouses all around the world that we started to stock. So wherever you are in the world, you should be able to get a hive fairly quickly. So for instance, if you're in Europe, it'll come out of our Netherlands warehouse, and we've got warehouses in the States, warehouses wherever a strategic place is. So if you go to honeyflow.com, it will then direct you to the right store for you to order from. And if you've got any questions, just let us know or give us a call. Okay, a little more honey than expected coming out of this end of the frame. For those that are just tuning in, we're just harvesting a tiny bit today because the bees aren't quite finished dewatering the honey, and it gets called ripening it, where the moisture content gets nice and low, down around the 18% range. The honey gets thick, and then it will keep, if provided the lid's on the jar, for thousands of years.
We have another question asking, how do you get bees in the hive?
Okay, so getting bees is, there's a number of different ways, like a lot of things in beekeeping. So first of all, you get your equipment, you set it up. If you want to paint it, then do your artwork on it, or if you don't, then you can just leave it more a decking coat, or in some cases the Western red cedar wood you can leave perfectly grey. Once you've got your equipment, you'll need to get bees locally. So the ways you can do that is take a split from a friend. If somebody's got bees, particularly in the springtime, you'll be helping them to take a few frames out of the bottom, relieve some congestion, and you can start your hive from a few frames from their brood box down here. That's called a split. If you want to order bees, order them from a bee breeder, and they'll come in a nucleus. So that you usually go and pick up. It's like a little box made out of core flute, and inside will be about half of the frames that go into your bottom box, and it'll be a going little mini hive. You put that where you want to situate your hive, and in the next number of weeks, choose a nice warm sunny day, get in your bee suit, get out your smoker, and transfer them into your bottom box. Look after them and they'll grow from there. Whoopsie whoopsie. Yum. That is good honey. So you can also order what's called packages of bees. In some areas of the world, you can order them in the post, and you'll get a bit of a funny look from your post person as they turn up with a buzzing box of bees. And that's kind of an artificial swarm where a beekeeper's just shaken bees off frames and put them in a box for you and put in a queen that is already mated and ready to go. We've got videos showing you how to transfer a nuke or a package or catch a swarm, or even build a bait hive to attract a wild swarm to your hive. So all of these methods We have great videos at thebeekeeper.org showing you how to do all of those methods. We've also got videos on our YouTube channel and Facebook page here as well. And hopefully you've got all the resources you need to get started in beekeeping. So keep chiming in with your questions. Also let us know what inspires you about bees, and particularly in connection to nature. That's the theme for World Bee Day this year, is be inspired by nature. So chime in, let us know if you've got questions. Also chime in, let us know, and we'll read those out.
Michael from Adelaide is wanting to know how much honey should be left for the bees.
Okay, so that really does depend. Now we're only harvesting just a tiny little part of one frame today, and we're leaving the rest on purpose because we can see here that the bees haven't quite filled these frames, and we've had a lot of rain for a number of weeks and the bees are a little bit hungry. However, if we were seeing them really filling up and capping off the frames, then we might decide to harvest more. So that's an as it happens, and these observation windows are fantastic to give you a great insight into the hive and when it's time to harvest. And after a while you get used to what the window looks like and what that means on the inside of the hive. You've also got these side windows as well that we can have a look at. Now, local knowledge is key to finding out how much honey you need to leave for a long winter. Now, in this area, the answer is none, because we get good honey flows through winter, but a lot of places in the world you actually will need to leave honey for your bees to survive a long winter. And how much will differ a little bit by which beekeeper you talk to and your location in the world. So for instance, right up in North America, it's typical to have, well, it depends who you talk to, but some will say a full box of honey to survive the winter, plus whatever's in the edges of your brood box. And some will say, no, we're all good with an ideal, or which is a shorter size box to survive the winter. So good idea to check on local knowledge. Chime in, let us know how much in your area you need to leave your bees to survive through to the next season.
So there's a question from Thomas. First of all, he says, "Hi Cedar, happy Bee Day. I drained 4 flow frames and ended up with 4 quarts, 1 quart per frame. Is this a normal quantity?"
Okay, could someone chime in, let us know what quart transfers to litres? I don't have that calculation in my head, and we can let you know, but basically in litres it'll be 2 litres, or kilograms is often the way it's talked about with honey, because the honey is heavier than water. So out of one of these frames, if we were harvesting the whole frame, which we're not today, you fill about one of these jars, which is about 3 kilograms of honey, or just over 2 litres of honey. And it's incredible when you think about it, and we owe a lot to this species, not only for their amazing honey production of this beautiful product that everyone loves and everyone likes to share, we owe it for the pollination aspect. So a hive like this could pollinate 50 million flowers in a day, which is extraordinary. We don't have any other mechanism, any other species of animal, any other robot or anything that can do that for us. So we do rely on Apis mellifera, the European honeybee, to pollinate much of our food. And so World Bee Day is an important time to remember that. We really need to look after the bees. We need to have enough beekeepers to look after the bees and keep the whole system going. So good on all of you who are keeping bees and keeping the traditions of beekeeping going in order to make sure our bees are being looked after, and we can keep splitting our hives and making more colonies so that we can keep the numbers of beehives up in the world. There we go. We're just having fun with little jars today, simply because we only wanted to harvest a small amount of honey. It actually looks like this frame has got quite a lot of honey in it. We probably could have harvested the whole thing. However, not being quite full here, I didn't want to end up with a whole lot of honey that's not quite ready. However, this is getting very close by looking at how it's behaving in the jar. It's you can see that bubble moving through the honey slowly. It's coming out warm. So if we did test this honey, I dare say that the moisture content would be actually okay to keep for 1,000 years.
Now, this is another common question. Do you suggest 1 or 2 brood boxes before adding a super?
Okay, so that really depends where you are in the world. Here we find that we just like to run a single brood box, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One is simplicity. There's not 2 boxes you have to look through to find the queen. There's not 2 boxes you need to maintain. There's no reason for us to run multiple brood boxes here where we are in this location with the type of flowerings we get here. However, if you're in a colder climate, it is more common to run a second brood box. And there's a few reasons for that. One is the season's often compressed into a smaller part of the year. So everything that is going to flower is flowering at once, if you like. And that inspires the bees to go absolutely crazy. The queen to lay thousands of eggs a day and your hive to really boom in numbers. So therefore, a larger size hive might be necessary to house such an enormous boom in the bees as the season really kicks in. Now, for that reason, people often choose the larger size. There's 2 main sizes in the world of the Langstroth sizes. So this one here we call the Flow 7, which matches a 10-frame Langstroth in the bottom. So there's 10 brood frames in the bottom here. So that's the more common size in those colder areas. And it's also common to do a second brood box, or perhaps the second box is what we call an ideal, which is a shorter size box. And Fred Dunn, you might like to watch some of his videos. He's in a very cold climate in North America there, and you'll find that he finds that he gets the best luck with his honey yields by using a single brood box and then an ideal also as a brood box, no queen excluder, and the flow frames in another box on top of that. So the ideal is kind of like a honey barrier, and also more stores for the hive to then use throughout the winter. And he'll take the flow frames off during the winter, put them back on in the springtime. So local knowledge is key in deciding how many brood boxes to run. Generally, most people are just running 1, but in the colder climates they might add a second.
So Mike has inherited from, Mike has a new base and roof he needs a new base and roof for his departed wife's flow hive. Are spare parts available?
Absolutely, just get in touch and we will help you out with your flow hive. And you can either phone in, and you'll often get Trace on the phone. She'll help you out with your spare parts. You can also email in, and we'll do our best to help you with any of the requests. I'm also going to show you the super lifter. We're here on World Bee Day, and getting right into the hive and having a close look at the bees feels like the right thing to do to really get in there and enjoy marvelling at the world of bees. So stay tuned for that. Just having a little technical difficulty, so stay with us and let us know if you can hear us okay. So if we come up to this hive here, what we're going to do is take it apart and have a look inside the brood nest. So I've got my smoker here. I already lit that up earlier. It's blowing nice clouds of cool smoke. I might just add a bit more fuel to it to make sure it lasts the distance. And wear your gloves if you're packing the smoker. Don't do what I do. You don't want to burn yourself. I'm an experienced beekeeper. I've learnt that many times to be careful of the hot metal. You can use your hive tool, or as you gain more experience, you'll know when it's hot and when it's not. Give it a few good puffs really to get that smoke billowing out, nice cool clouds of smoke. And what we're going to do is just press the nozzle near the entrance and blow some smoke into the hive. And that'll have a calming effect on the bees. So I usually just go 3 good puffs right into the entrance. And if you wait a minute, the bees should be a lot calmer than if you didn't. Now, one thing I'm seeing here is a lot of pollen coming in, which is great to see that they are really bringing in pollen resources. Almost every bee has got big pollen pants. And that's what we call when they have pollen in their pollen baskets, which are on their hind legs. So that looks super cool. We've got white pollen, yellow pollen, orange pollen, and it's really nice to see a variety of pollen coming into the hive, because pollen is their protein source, and that's what they use to make their bee bread, which is basically fermented like a sourdough. The pollen they pack into the cells with their heads, they add their special sauce with a little bit of honey, they use enzymes, and it starts to ferment and turn into bee bread. Now come and have a look at this pollen coming in to the hive, and give us a thumbs up if you can see any of the pollen balls coming into the entrance there. Look out for the orange balls on the back legs, or sometimes they're yellow or white, they can be blue, and that is pollen that they've collected from flowers. Look at that, heaps of pollen coming in. Nice and healthy. Okay, I'm going to show you how to use the super lifter. So first of all, I'll protect myself just by putting my hood on. Now, make sure that it's done up centrally, and then the 2 side zips like this, and then the Velcro will go right over the top. And that will just limit any bees getting into your veil, which is not a fun spot to have bees, because they might give you a sting on the face, which is very uncomfortable. Okay, so our super lifter is made to open the hive in a much easier way, and my father and I worked on this invention for about 7 years, and here it is in the bag. And all you need to do in order to open your hive is lift it up by these handles. Now I'm going to put this bag aside, and as soon as I spread my hands apart and grab these hand grips, it sets itself up ready to go, ready to attach to the hive. I wanted to take all of the fiddly work out of it, and then there is that step number 1 written on the handle. Step 2 is written on the lower brackets there, 2. And then 3 is written here, so we follow it, 3 going up to the upper bracket like that, and making sure that they are engaged as you lift. Now at this point, check they're all there, engaging with the load point screws, and all you need to do is give it a bit of a lift like this, which is so much easier than the old way of chiseling apart your hive. And you come to the top and you set up your leg like this by extending with these adjustable leg. Now there's a great little show here of what's going on. Now to lift this brood box off manually would have been quite an ordeal, because the frames are stuck to the excluder, and that's really hard, especially when you're on your own, you're lifting but the frames are stuck, and the bees really don't like that. They don't like their frames lifting and getting smashed around. So what we did is we designed a little gap there for you to simply lever those frames down again. So all we need to do is give them a little push and down they go. And that's so much easier than the way it used to be. And then we can continue with our brood inspection by just opening up the hive in a much easier way than we used to have to do. So there it is, rolls over. If you haven't seen this before, it's a game changer, and people are very excited about this because it takes that heavy, hard, awkward lift out of beekeeping that often ruins a lot of beekeepers' backs. We've also got handles to make it even easier if you want more leverage to open your hive. Now notice these bees are a little bit twitchy today, so I'm going to add a bit more smoke and wait for a second and get our smoker going again. If you've got questions, put it in the comments and we'll get to answering those. World Bee Day, and the theme is Be Inspired by Nature. And it's hard not to be inspired by Apis mellifera, the honeybee, because of their extraordinary way they can pollinate up to 50 million flowers a day on a single hive. Perhaps even more. And also, they produce an extraordinary amount of honey, which I think I'm good. I don't need to change the jar yet, but we just harvested a tiny bit of one frame and got some beautiful honey to taste of what's coming in right now. So hats off to Apis mellifera, the European honeybee, and the extraordinary job they do for us as humans in our whole agricultural system. And all bees and all pollinating species, really on World Bee Day, it's good to not only think about this one that's so important to our agricultural system, but also all of the native bee species that are around in the wild, in your garden. And that's why we like to plant a lot of flowers. A garden like this won't really do much for the honeybee because you won't really produce enough nectar to store a meaningful amount of honey, but it will attract a whole lot of other pollinating species, which are a joy to have around and a great thing as a family to keep an eye out for is the native bee species. Here in Australia we've got the blue-banded bee, we've got the fire-tailed resin bee, we've got the masked bees, we've got there's actually 19,000 native bee species in the world, so keep a look out. There's always interesting ones that are neon blue, ones that are striped, ones that have yellow faces, all sorts of little native bee species. We've also got the pollinator houses, which is for people who just want to be inspired by the native bee species and give them little homes. And if we give those native bee species enough habitat, we can build corridors even through our urban landscapes, connecting through to wild spaces again. So your effort in your backyard might help a native bee species, which often only has a short range of a few hundred meters, might help it connect through to the next space. So super important to rewild our world, as David Attenborough says. We need to rewild our world, and we can do that in our own backyard just by creating habitat or even just leaving spaces wild. Do some lazy gardening, leave some areas untouched for habitat for your native bee species. Okay, now you're in your hive, you can then pull out some frames. As I said, they're just a little bit twitchy today, so I'm spending a little bit more time than usual just waiting for them to settle down, blowing a bit more smoke into the hive. You'll notice that smoke will agitate at first. Like if I get down close to the hive, have a listen to this. So give us the thumbs up if you could hear the difference there in the bee's tone. And now, if I leave it a minute, they've calmed down, and they will be calmer than they would without any smoke at all. So smoke's a great tool for a number of reasons, but one is the calming effect that it has on the bees. So I'm gently peeling up the excluder, and under here there could be a queen bee. So I'm keeping a lookout just in case I notice a queen on this surface here, which I can't see. But always a good practice to lean it up against the hive just in case you missed her, so you can walk right back onto the hive. Now, I'm going to pull out one of these frames and see what's going on in our brood nest. And I believe we showed you how to cut out some frames. I think it was this hive recently. I can't see which frame it was. Let's have a look at this. If you've got any questions, put it in the comments and we'll answer as we go.
Yeah, there's a question about the super lifter. Does the super lifter work without the roof on the super?
Yes, you can certainly take the roof off if you want to. I usually don't bother because it's just one step you don't need to do. And if you've left the cap out of the inner cover, it could be full of bees and comb as well. So having the option to keep it on is wonderful. Look at that, straight away we see a nice big patch of brood. That's what we want to see, is a lot of baby bees going through their metamorphosis. That's their cocoon, if you like. And you can really easily tell the difference between honey, which is capped over here. See how it is a little more translucent and you can see through almost. Especially if you held it up to the light, you'll see a bit of light coming through. Whereas the brood you won't, because the bees spin a silk cocoon around themselves, much like a caterpillar does. So that the young larvae will spin a silk cocoon around itself and the bees will help cap that off, and you end up with all of these cocooned bees that we call brood. And
oh, sorry.
you can see on the other side more brood, which is fantastic. That question again?
Well, this is a new one. A lot of people on TikTok are commenting saying this is AI and fake. What do we have to say about this?
Well, let us know. Chime in, let us know whether you think we're fake or not. It is a particularly beautiful area that can look just a bit too good in the background. It's been raining a lot, there's a lot of green, and the bees are looking beautiful. So chime in, let us know whether you think I'm a fake robot. We have been doing this for 10 years, so we would have to be well ahead of the curve to be able to fake it 10 years ago. All right. We can just put this down. Now I don't have the frame rest ready here, but that's okay. I can just lean it up against the hive here, which is a nice spot if you want to get another shot of that. And I can then go and pull out some more frames from the hive. Let's see what's on this next frame. These are all naturally drawn combs. So the bees have just done their thing in the wooden frame, drawing their wax. And they do a great job of it. I'm a fan of naturally drawn comb. I don't bother putting foundation in anymore. When I found out you didn't need to, I was very happy, and particularly with a flow hive, there's no reason to have that reinforcement of wax and wire or plastic foundation because we aren't putting this in a centrifuge, so we don't need that reinforcement, so we can just let the bees do it perfectly naturally, and it saves you a lot of work putting in the foundation as well. Okay, now on this side it's quite interesting. I am seeing, let's see if we can get the light for you. You're probably going to need to come right around this side, Callum. And so if I just brush the bees away a little bit here, you can see this is the capped phase that we're talking about, where the bees have capped the brood and the developing larvae is underneath going through its metamorphosis. Over here gives a thumbs up if you can see the glistening grubs down the cells, or larvae. So that's called the larvae stage. And this is the pupa or pupae, where they are going through their metamorphosis. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to get into a hive, and often beekeepers start off thinking they're just going to harvest the honey, get somebody else to do the looking after the bee bit, and quite often people get so inspired they end up really enjoying this bit of marvelling at the world of bees as well. So we get a lot of people very fascinated and doing a great job of looking after their bees and checking in on them. Here you've got a baby bee that's just emerging, just in this area here. See just there in front of my finger is a little head. Give us a heads up. Give us a thumbs up if you can see that baby bee chewing its way out of its cocoon. And it will emerge into the hive soon as a fluffy little baby bee to start its chores in the hive and go about its jobs. One of the first jobs it'll do is cleaning out the cells that they emerge from. And it'll add a little pheromone in there to say this cell's been cleaned, it's ready for the queen to lay. It's a bit like the door hanger on a hotel room. Okay. Any more questions?
Yeah, Malcolm has asked if you can store flow frames in the freezer for winter, whether they have honey in them or not. Also, can you keep other used frames in a freezer as well, with or without honey for the winter?
Absolutely, a freezer is a great way to hold things at a standstill. There's no vermin or wax moth or any ants or mildew that's going to get on the frames if they're in a freezer. So if you've got partly filled frames at the end of the season, you are wanting to take off, downsize your hive and take off the flow frames for a long winter ahead, then by all means, you can take the flow frames off, and if they've still got honey in them, you could freeze them and put them back on in the next season, and they'll pick up where they left off. That's a great way to keep frames, whether they're brood frames, obviously not with brood in them because the brood will die, but if you want to keep the frames in a freezer, if they've got the honey frames from the edge, and some beekeepers like to do that because they can give back a frame of honey if the hive gets hungry. And the flow frames, yes, a wonderful way to keep them as they are for the next season. If you don't have a freezer or you don't have the freezer space, you can harvest the honey, give them a good clean out, let them dry, put them away for when the hive is next ready for them. Here in this subtropical region, we leave them on the hive all year round, so we don't really need to do that step. Okay, I need a little more smoke. They are a little towy today. Some hives, well, each hive has its own character set by the genetics that the queen has and the drones she has mated with.
We have a customer who's replying to the previous question about how much honey can be harvested. He's saying in the last financial year to date, he has harvested a total of 31 frames between the two hives for a total of 71.85 kilograms, averaging 2.3 kilogram per frame. The best was 2.94 kilograms.
Wow, that's great. And when you get on a good flow, when the hive is nice and healthy and you've got a lot of flowering species around, and that usually happens in the springtime in a big way, and then other times of year you'll also have good honey flows as well. And it's wonderful. People write in and say, I've already paid off my flow hive by selling the honey in the first year. And that's amazing when you can do that. And other people don't get around to selling the honey because they've got a hungry family and they've got lots of friends they can give it away to. And honey's just such a sweet gift and a beautiful thing to share with your neighbours. World Bee Day here. Chime in, let us know. The theme is Be Inspired by Nature. So let us know what is inspiring about the bees and the connection to nature. Chime in the comments.
We also have a few questions asking if beekeeping is legal in residential areas.
And the answer is, for the most part, yes. Now, you will get some restrictions in some places, but generally you can keep a number of hives in your backyard, in the city, or on your rooftop, or even on your balcony if you're in a high-rise building. So bees are great like that because they only require a very small footprint like this. So the area that this hive takes up is the only area you need, but these bees will be farming, if you like, the local area in up to a 6-mile or 10-kilometre radius and bringing all of that produce back into your hive to create their honey and create the bee bread to feed their young. So they're incredible like that. And the flow hive's particularly popular in urban areas because you no longer need an extracting room. So conventional beekeeping always had this issue where you'd need to dedicate a shed or a room in your house to honey extraction. You need to go and buy all the equipment. You need the centrifuge, the decapping line, which was usually a bench with a hot knife, and a whole lot of buckets and sieves, and a whole lot of mess in a way that you've got to clean up at the end of it all. And now we have this really elegant system that my father worked on my father and I developed over a decade of testing in the hives, and here we have it. 10 years now of our flow hive being out in the wild. It's proven in every single continent that has flowers, so not in Antarctica obviously, but the flow hive is being used all around the world, and it's so popular because you no longer need all of that other equipment. It's just a very small space, so very popular in urban backyards and rooftops. And also the experience of harvesting honey is a real joy, just to be able to sit there and fill up your jars like we were doing earlier. And you can often do that with your family and friends, and that's something that's really different to the conventional way of harvesting honey that I used to do a lot of. And what inspired me to invent the flow hive was the hard work, the dedication, the mess, all of that extracting line, the sawback, and all of that went along with harvesting honey in the conventional way. And here we have it, the flow hive. You do need to look after your bees, of course, but if you look after your bees, you get this beautiful produce and this amazing thing we call honey, and the benefit of them pollinating the surrounding area.
Yeah, someone just commented, bees give us life.
And bees have been revered through the ages, and it really is, and the reason for that is their incredible pollination and their amazing honey they produce, and also wax, which you can get from any beehive, including a flow hive. And in the Dark Ages, the wax was very important for making candles, and it's still a fun thing to do with your kids at home, is collect up a bit of beeswax and make some candles. Keep those questions coming in.
Yeah, there's a question I missed earlier asking how many hives is too many for a beginner? How many should you start with?
Okay, so it's up to you how headlong you like to go into things. Different people have different personalities and ways they like to learn. So I'm the kind of person, I mean, we had bees growing up, so I was familiar with harvesting honey and doing it all the old way and all of that. But when I decided in my early 20s, I decided to keep bees in a bigger way. I just started with 40. And of course, that was a bit to manage, and a lot of honey harvesting and selling honey to the local shops and all of that. And that's where the inspiration came from to invent the flow hive. But I think it's always good to have more than one, because if one hive is lost its queen, for instance, you can get the resources from another hive that's perhaps got some eggs down cells, move it to this hive to prop it up, to give them a go at raising another queen. So that's a really good reason to have more than one hive. And the other one is, one hive will do great harvest, store an extraordinary amount of honey that we can harvest. Another hive might only produce enough to keep themselves going. So if you want to get more honey stores, more hives is the way to go. But I think starting with a couple is a good idea. Often people just start with one, and then in the springtime they'll split it into two.
Here's a great comment. I will pick up my bees tomorrow. I'm so excited. What is the first tip you would give me?
Okay, so the first tip is really think about where you want to place your hive. So if you're picking up your bees, I assume it's in a nucleus, which is like a half of one of these boxes sized box. And you've got about 4 or 5 frames in that. There's a queen in there, she's laying eggs, you've got brood, you've got pollen, you've got honey stores. It's a going little mini hive. And because bees geolocate to the spot, you want to choose the spot to put your hive first and prepare that spot. So if it's a spot in your garden like this, you might put down a few little pavers and put your nucleus there. And you can leave that there for a number of weeks. Choose a nice warm sunny day when you're ready and get in your bee suit, wear your gloves, get out the smoker and transfer them into your brood box. Look after them and they'll grow from there. So my number one tip is think about where you want your hive, because moving them, while you can do it, it's preferred to leave the hive where they've geolocated to, because they're so good at recognizing landmarks and using their inbuilt compasses. If you move the hive 5 meters away, they'll get confused and they'll all come back to this spot here. So I would recommend, because you're probably wondering what is the best location for your hive, I'd recommend choosing a location where they get more sun rather than less. So if you're in a too shady spot, then you can get a thing called chalk brood, which is a spore-producing fungus that gets into the hive. And one of the recipes for fixing that is moving it into the sun. So you may as well choose a sunny spot to begin with. A little shade in the afternoon in summer would be ideal, but not critical. I'd go full sun over full shade. And also the entrance, point it to somewhere where it's not going to bother anybody. Here there's nobody walking past along this side, so it's a great direction to point the hives, because you go a flight path is set up in front of the hive, and if people are walking there they might get bees in their hair and accidentally get a sting and so on. So point the hive entrance towards somewhere where it's not going to bother anybody. So good luck, and let us know how you go with installing your bees into your brood box. We've got a lot of videos, and if you want an online training course with great videos, have a look at the beekeeper.org, which is a course that's made to take you from square one right through to even a deep scientific knowledge in beekeeping. It's got experts from all over the world chiming in with high quality video training content, and it's free to try, and it's also an amazing fundraiser. And we like to create a lot of habitat for bees, which is a really important thing. So we've been working with high quality ecosystem restoration projects around the world. We've planted over 1.5 million trees now from funds from the beekeeper.org. So have a look at that if you do want a high quality video training course that will sequentially take you through from square one right through to a really deep knowledge in beekeeping. But also we have a lot of videos on our Facebook page and YouTube channel for you to learn from as well, and we're here each week answering questions.
We have a lot of questions coming through. One of them from a few minutes ago: can I put a wood frame into my super so that the bees can make natural comb and honey to harvest later?
Well, you could do that. It's annoying when you open that rear door for the view, bees will come out everywhere. Unless you've got our hybrid, which is built for exactly that, where you have a mixture in the top box. So we have a hybrid hive for doing that. It's not that popular, which is interesting. People tend to want the full rack of flow frames more so, but if you do want to mix it up, have a look at our hybrid. Now, I haven't found it's that useful putting frames in the top box, but what you might like to do instead is add another box for honeycomb collection. And often people like to add an ideal, so a shorter box that has little mini frames for honeycomb collection. Or you could collect honeycomb up in the roof cavity by taking the plug out of the inner cover and letting them build honeycomb up there. Or if you want to limit them from connecting to the underside of the roof, you can put a container upside down over that hole and they'll build honeycomb in a smaller, more manageable space.
And will the super lifter work on 2 brood boxes?
Yes, and if you dial back through some of our demos, you'll see us doing just that. We designed it to work on 2 10-frame deeps plus a roof that could be full of honey as well. So that's about the maximum in terms of the dynamics we've designed it for. If you want to go more than that, then you'll have to get yourself your own support stand to take the weight of the hive, because the load will get unbalanced on this rest here. So we've designed it for the most popular scenarios, which is a single or a double, which is a brood box plus 1 or 2 more deep boxes. So that's the more common scenario in the world. But if you like to stack more boxes than that, then you are on your own, if you like. It's not what we have designed it for. Okay, let's take out another frame, see what's going on in here. Then we're going to start packing up this hive. They are a bit towy today for whatever reason. There's the queen, which is nice. I was hoping we would spot her on World Bee Day. She's the all-important egg layer of the hive, and she's just there. Give us a thumbs up if you can see her. She doesn't have stripes like the other bees do. Sometimes they can, but often they don't. You see, she's got the same eyes as the worker bees around her, but she has also worn a bit of hair off her thorax there, so you've got that black shiny back plate. But it's through her movement that you'll often spot her. She's got bigger strides. Give us a thumbs up if you can see the queen compared to the other worker bees here in front of my hive tool. And her job is simply to lay eggs all day, except for if the hive is packing down for the winter, then she'll stop laying eggs altogether in those cold climates. And here where we are, she'll keep laying eggs all year round. So without her, the hive dwindles away to nothing. So the all-important queen is there, and it's called queen right when your hive has a queen that's laying. And it's called queenless when the hive has no queen. And often the beekeeper's job is to remedy that situation and either add another queen to the hive or give them the resources to do so. Looks like she might be measuring a cell ready to lay. So let's see if she's going to reverse down. That'd be amazing if she'll give us a little show of egg laying. She's doing a little cleaning. What's she going to do? She's dragging her abdomen low down. She's measured the cells, and now she looks like she's going to reverse into it. Give us a thumbs up if you can see the queen there. Oh, changed her mind. A little bit camera shy perhaps here today. There she is in front of the hive tool, and she's definitely getting ready to lay by the way she's curling her abdomen and really checking out the cells. Very cool. Any more questions? We've got time for a couple more.
Okay, we have an emergency. Josh has just had 4 hives blow over a few minutes ago with a storm. Please help, what can I do?
Okay, sorry to hear you've had hives blow over in a storm. Really important to pick them up as soon as you can. So get in your bee seat, get out your smoker, and get your hives back upright. Reason being is if you don't, you could get some issues with the hive either absconding or succumbing to beetle attack. Typically what happens is all the frames lay over on their side and touch each other. The bees can't service it, and the beetles, if you have the small hive beetle in your area, can really take advantage of that situation, and hive beetles can really get hold and decimate that hive. So there's the queen there. It's important to get out your bee suit, your smoker, your gloves. To bear in mind they could be a bit upset about the whole ordeal, and you may need to use quite a lot of smoke to calm them down before putting their hives back on their seat. If the boxes are still stuck together, you can simply tip them up. If they are apart, you'll need to then pick up each box one by one. So bring your hive tool as well, so you can use that to manipulate frames, straighten them up, make sure they're not all wonky, and if you do it soon enough, your bees should be fine. Now I've got this strange sensation on my thumb, just as I moved it. So this little bee here on my thumb has been busy nipping away with its mandibles, which I'm not sure what it's trying to do, but they use their mandibles for all sorts of manipulation of the comb inside the hive, and they also will sometimes give you a warning nip. They don't want to sting because that might be the end of their life. They might just decide to nip you instead, and that's a lot more friendly than a sting. Okay, we're going to put the all-important queen back in the hive because she's on this frame, and we're going to do that carefully, because if we squash the queen, then the bees will have to raise another one, and they sometimes don't get it together, and sometimes you end up with a queenless hive if you accidentally squash the queen. So I'm going to gently put this frame back in place. I'm going to use some smoke to make sure I'm not squashing any bees between the end bars here. So it's World Bee Day. We're appreciating the bees today, and we are also, the theme is be inspired by nature, and these are all naturally drawn combs just as the bees want to do it, except for the top box here. That's our invention frames. In the bottom it's just wood and wax, and the bees have gone about doing their thing. Yeah, it's an age-old tradition. Really, the flow hive invention, my father and I's invention, was the first big change in 150 years of a completely new and different way to harvest, which is why it really took the world by storm in 2015. And apologies to all of those beekeepers out there who got a million links from all of their friends sent to them. It really did inspire a whole new wave of beekeepers also, who want to have a much more, I guess, small footprint in their yard. They don't want to dedicate a whole room to the conventional extracting, and they're inspired by our easy, gentle way of extracting honey from the hive. Okay, so I've put this on the ground. It's collected a bit of hay just on the sticky end bars. So I'm just giving that a little clean up. Not that it matters, the bees will clean that up quite readily, but that's propolis there we're scraping off. That the bees, it's their glue, if you like. They collected that from trees in the surrounding area, the sap and the resin from trees, and they create their propolis, which is a medicinal thing that you can get from a hive as well by collecting that up. Okay, notice the tone change. They get a bit upset by smoke momentarily, and then they'll calm, but it's very useful for getting bees out of the way so we don't squash them as we put the frame back together, or back in the hive rather. Now I'm looking for which way around this frame goes, because I don't want to get into the situation where I'm pressing comb against comb. And it looks to me like it goes this way. Now notice you've got a whole big ball of bees on this side. Now if I just jammed it down, I could roll them and squash them. If I use a little smoke, they'll clear out, and that will allow the frame to drop in without squashing the bees. There we go. So smoke's a great tool for moving bees along as well. Now we can let that drop down, putting a little bit of pressure on it, like that. There you have it, the hive back together. And now all we need to do is give you a demonstration of how to put the hive back together with our super lifter. So let's not forget the queen excluder, which is here. And I'm going to use smoke again to clear the bees because I don't want to pin them between the excluder. Now the bees are a bit agitated, so they are moving around a lot. The bee brush can be a helpful thing as well. But I am going to choose a time when there's no bees there to put back on our queen excluder. And before bees get there, I'm going to clear just this area here and this area here. So it's much easier to close up your hive in this controlled way with our super lifter, and much easier to do a gentle job of it, because you can take all the time in the world instead of wandering up and waddling with this big heavy weight and just kind of going crunch, which if you've done a lot of beekeeping you know too well. And now you can smoke and use a bee brush as much as you like, and you can spend as much time as you like just closing the hive in a gentle, controlled way with our lifter. If the bees are continuing to get in the way, you can just go up and down a little bit, and you're seizing the moment where there's no bees to close it up, and your work is done that easy with our super lifter. Now it's ready to go on another hive, or we can simply pack it up like this, put it back in the bag. Thank you so much for all of your great questions. Now, we were harvesting a tiny bit of honey here today just to see what the bees were bringing in, and we're using these cute little jars, which are a lovely thing if you've got a wedding or something like that, to share around to all of your guests. Now, in order to finish the harvesting process, the key goes in the top slot. Now we only opened part of the frame, but you may as well go all the way just to make sure. Turn that to a 90, leave it for a minute or two while you pack up, and that way it's pushing all of your frames back into the cell-formed position, and that will save you from issues later. If you do a quick close and you end up with cells like that, you can often get a lot of wax build up here as they attempt to use a wobbly shaped cell, and that can really restrict the flow of honey later, cause spills in the hive and so on. Okay, so the cap will just hot swap back in like that, and any remaining honey will go back to the bees for them to reuse. You can enjoy the spoils here, and compared to the old way, it's ridiculous. It's chalk and cheese. This is the only thing you really need to clean up. Just that. Compared to many buckets, a whole centrifuge, a decapping bench, a hot knife, a sticky floor, half your kitchen utensils, and so on. Not to mention the truck you've used to truck things from your hive back to your extracting room, and all of your equipment that you've been using, bee brushes and so on, to get the bees off the frame in order to take those frames back to the extracting room. So, game changer. We can simply tap off some honey in a very easy way. Thank you, all of you, for chiming in, and happy World Bee Day. It's really a great time to appreciate and remember these bees that make our world go round, and all of the other native species are really important pollinators as well. So thank you very much for all of your great questions, and let us know what inspires you about bees. The theme is Be Inspired by Nature for this World Bee Day.
We did have a happy bee day wish from Jamaica.
From Jamaica, let us know whereabouts in the world you are. It's very interesting to us to have a whole globe of beekeepers inspired about the hives, looking after the hives and harvesting in this new way my father and I invented. So thanks to all of you for chiming in, and also the important job you do looking after bees. If we didn't have all the beekeepers, we would be in trouble. So each one of us does our part to keep Apis mellifera alive in the world and doing its important pollination role, which is completely intertwined with our whole agricultural system. So great work, everyone. Let us know what you'd like us to cover next week, and we'll be back with another show and tell.